little background about myself. So I am talking from experience. So I used to be a CQC inspector. As I say, seen the best and the worst that care has to offer. Learned a lot. Since then, I've been a director for some care providers where I've successfully supported over 15 services to get to outstanding. So I like to think I might know what I'm talking about sometimes. And currently working as a consultant. And Godfrey was saying earlier about how we should expand our horizons. When I first started doing this consultancy, this just said care homes domiciliary. And since then, like you say, there's so many regulated services out there, and they're all regulated by the CQC. It's the same regulations as well. And I found myself now supporting patient transport because that is a growing area at the moment, ambulance services and baby clinics as well. So there's another business that if anyone wants to get into, it's quite nice actually, going into baby clinics and seeing all the, is it a boy, is it a girl situation. So this isn't antenatal clinics, this is your 4D imaging clinics. So if anybody's interested in that, that's also something CQC do regulate, and it is on the up at the moment as well. So yeah, who'd have known that I'd be doing that. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what's been happening with CQC. Has anyone been following? It's like Coronation Street or EastEnders, isn't it? You just don't know what's going to happen next. So those of you who have been following, in October, Professor Sir Mike Richards did a review on the single assessment framework, and he came up with a few truths that I think all of us knew in the first place. So what he said was, when the single assessment framework was put in, it did have some positive elements. There were some good things about it. But generally what they were trying to do was make one shoe fit all. And that doesn't work, because care is very different. Every service is very different. And if you try and put the same regulatory framework, the same inspection framework across all services, let it be dom care, let it be supported living, hospital services, it's not going to work. Putting in 36 quality statements and saying that every single service needs to evidence those quality statements, not all quality statements are relevant to every organisation. So what ended up happening was it had a huge impact on providers. We've got situations where providers have been inspected and they weren't given a rating because not enough quality statements were looked at. The inspectors couldn't provide a judgment at the end of it. So I don't know how you feel, but if I've gone through an entire day and inspectors sat in my office and gone through all of my paperwork and looked at everything, I've had a couple of heart attacks at some point as well during the day. And then they've written me a report and not given me a rating at the end of it. I haven't got my money's worth. Because fundamentally, when you are bidding for work, when you have clients who are looking you up on the CQC website, on various different websites, what's the first thing they're looking for? Is your rating, okay? So it was having a huge impact on people. So a review was done, and lo and behold, we then had the Care Providers Alliance review, which was done in February this year. Did anybody watch the video on that one? It was quite long. It's a good thing you didn't, because it was really, really annoying to watch. My blood was boiling. But fundamentally, CQC were held to account, okay? And throughout the meeting, and if you are interested, I can send the links. I think the link is on my LinkedIn profile as well. It is a good thing to watch, because what they said was, a question that was asked of the CQC was, how delayed are you with your inspections? And the answer that they gave was, oh, we're a little delayed. And they said, but can you actually give us figures on the delay? And they were like, oh, well, we don't quite have that information to hand, and this and that. And they said, right, can you get us that information? We'll move on to the next question. And they provided some recommendations based on 3 core areas. And what they said was they needed to make a change to the single assessment framework because it's not working, and we all know that. They also need to work on the poor experience around assessments for providers because we haven't had a good experience. Everybody, it changes, it depends on which area of the country you're in, it depends on what type of service you are as to the experience that you're providing. And then they said they need to work on the communication and the culture around communication, both internally, when it comes to CQC talking to themselves, but also how they're communicating what's happening as well. So there were 3 core areas that they spoke about. But fundamentally, and this is taken from the CQC website, so I'm not making it up, they said, abandon the concept of a single assessment framework. The services that CQC regulate are diverse, and it's not proved helpful. They stated the obvious. We could have told them that. So it will still be there, but they are going to change it. And it's no longer going to be a single, one shoe fits all. So what were the recommendations around the single assessment framework? What they said was, we're going to reduce the number of quality statements. So instead of having 36 quality statements where people have to evidence every single one, they're saying, actually, no, we need to reduce that down. And if any of you have looked at the quality statements, I spend a lot of time looking at them, they are repetitive. There are many quality statements that you just repeat yourself and say the same thing again, okay? So they will be reduced. I did an exercise a couple of days ago where I said, okay, let me look at the repetitive ones. And when I looked at the repetitive ones, it brought it down to about 20. So things like staff well-being and engagement plus staff diversity, they will probably become 1, you know. So, environmental sustainability may actually go, because actually how can you hold a provider accountable for environmental sustainability? It's not a regulation, yeah? So to bring it in as part of the inspection framework, it's a nice to have, but it's not a regulation, okay? So that's, you have infection control, you have when it comes to your clinical waste and things, but that's done differently, okay? But you can't enforce that on a provider. So there are various things that are going to go with the quality statements. They also said that you can't assess all providers on a consistent set of statements. So you need to support providers with a consistent set of statements. So there's going to be specific statements that everybody has to comply with. And then depending on the type of service you have, they will add more, okay? So things like, you know, it's when care observations. You can't always do a care observation when it's a domiciliary, okay? But a lot of the questions look at what care is being provided, but you can only provide that as part of evidence, as in paper evidence. So it's looking at that with the ambulance services as well. You can't always provide that observation around care. So what they're saying is there'll be a set amount of quality statements to look at, and then from there the inspector can pick and choose. They will create guidance for each service type, and they'll give you examples around what good and outstanding looks like. So it's no more guesswork. It's actually providing you with proper guidance on what good and outstanding looks like, so you can mold your services and you can have a full understanding of what you need to provide to your inspector in order to support your rating. They're going to start using the provider information return. And I've always had a big issue with that, because CQC every year send out your provider information return request. Everyone goes into a panic and starts filling it in, because we've got to send it in within the month, fill it in. And I always say to services, they're not looking at it. How do I know that? I used to be a CQC inspector. Okay? What happens is, and the date of the request of your PIR correlates with the date of your last inspection, because it's an automated response. So CQC inspectors, when they write your inspection report, in order for them to press the publish button, they have to enter the date of your next inspection. And 3 months before that date that they entered, an automatic request for a PIR goes out. There is nobody sitting in the background doing that. And during COVID, those dates carried on rolling round. So CQs, back in the day, people would say, oh, if your PIRs come through, 3 months later your inspection's going to happen. That's not actually the case, because it's automated. It's all an automated response. But now they're saying they're going to start using those PIRs. So we need to fill them in properly. Advance notice of inspections. So some of you are thinking, well, we already get notification. We already get told 48 hours. Not all services get told. So care home providers, you don't get informed by CQC, they just turn up. Domiciliary services, they will give you some notice, okay? But they're now saying that they are going to give notice to everybody on their arrival into the service. So it allows you time to prepare. I don't think they're going to give you a month's notice. They'll probably give you 48 hours notice or something like that, but it's always good to know that they are going to give you notice. Evidence requests, assessments, timelines, and the number of inspections will be proportionate. So they are going to start looking at you in a more proportionate way. So depending on the number of service users you've got, that's the amount of information they're going to ask from you. So if you've got 5 clients, they have to be proportionate in the amount of evidence they're asking for. If you've got 150 clients, they have to be proportionate when they're looking at that. It's a good thing, because how many times have we ended up with a situation where an inspector goes into an 80 plus service, they find 2 incidents which weren't investigated properly, and then suddenly that becomes the key theme within your report. That's not proportionate reporting, okay? CQC inspectors have to be proportionate when they are assessing you and when they are rating you. It all has to be proportionate. So now they're saying they have to evidence that. They have to, inspectors must ensure that evidence included in decision making has been corroborated rather than taking at face value. So it's no longer that person's own opinion. So the lady at the back was saying around unconscious bias. Yeah? CQC, back when I was there, had to go through a whole training program around unconscious bias, because it was happening and it was evidenced that inspectors were going to services having their own opinions. And because of their own opinions, because of their own biases, they were too hard on the service, they were making their own judgments, and they were giving reports out which were not correct. So CQC are now saying that actually there needs to be a balanced appraisal, and they can't just look at risk. They can't just look at what's wrong in the service. They have to look for the good. They have to look for the outstanding as well, not just focus on the risk side of things, okay? And all of this information is on the CQC website, and this is so important for you as providers to know about, because any one of you could have a CQC inspection tomorrow. Hopefully it won't happen. I'm sorry I said that. Whoever has it tomorrow, I'm really sorry. But you need to know this, okay? Because if anything happens, or you feel as though an inspector's not quite working as they should, you should be able to raise that, okay? And have the confidence to raise it with them as well. So what did they say about the provider experience? They said, we need to reintroduce a single point of contact. So finally, we're going to get our inspectors back. And it's been really hard not having that single point, that one person to go to when you've got any issues, having that one person who comes out and inspects your service, because that is so important for any provider. If you've got a good relationship with your inspector, that can really help you when it comes to getting that support with CQC. So they're reintroducing inspectors and single points of contact. They're going to train inspectors with the involvement of providers. So they're actually saying that their inspectors need to go out to providers and have some training, because so many CQC inspectors have never worked in healthcare. So my introduction earlier of myself, prior to joining CQC, I worked in the police. I'd never stepped foot in a care home before. Yeah? I know. I know my stuff now, but I went through a very intense training, 3 months training with CQC. Obviously, I'd worked within the policing sector, so I understood law, regulations, and various things like that. But did I understand care? No. The amount of times now, and I want to contact CQC because I want to be part of this training, because I want to stand in a room with CQC inspectors and say, you guys need to apologise to every single provider that you've given a requires improvement to. Yeah? Because so many times, me as an inspector went in and I gave a service that requires improvement, and I saw the look on the provider's face who was distraught, never understanding the amount of work that went into getting that service right. And me nitpicking over the smallest thing. Yeah? So I would love for CQC inspectors to come out to providers and understand that every single day the challenges that you face, because they don't understand that. They just get focused on, well, no, that audit wasn't done properly. There's a gap in your MAR charts. But what about looking at it proportionately? So this new process will hopefully get rid of all of that. So they've also said there's going to be an independent body that mediates all complaints. So you can complain against CQC. Now there will be an independent body that will look at any complaints that you may have with any processes within CQC. They will ensure that all changes in regulatory approach thus far and in future will be communicated to all their inspectors. So in the past, as we all know, not every inspector knew what was going on in the commission. And I'm sure some of you have had inspectors that came in that didn't quite know what they were meant to do. Now they're saying we're going to finally communicate that to our inspectors, and we're going to make sure that when inspectors come out to services, they fully understand what their job is. You would have thought that would be basic, but at least they've recognised it now. They're going to communicate changes with you. So you're going to be kept informed about any changes. It's funny though, because all of this came from the CQC website, but you guys didn't know about it. So that's not working. But yeah, apparently they're going to communicate this at some point. It's only because I'm quite sad and I know my way around the CQC website, so I look at this stuff. But yeah, obviously it's not that clear what they're doing. Immediate feedback should be given at the end of the inspections. So I think that's a very good thing. I mean, when I was an inspector, I'll be really honest that I was a bit of a rogue and I would give feedback because I could see it was important to the provider. So I would say to them, if it was good, I would say, look, you know, I can't see any issues at the moment. Maybe something might come up. But at the moment, you're fine. Because I knew that they're worried. They're going to lose sleep. They need to know. They can't wait like 2-3 weeks for me to write the report and send it through to them. If I was rating a service outstanding, I would just give them a little wink. Just so that they knew. Yeah? But I guess I was a nice inspector. But no. Well, the ones I gave inadequates to probably didn't say I was a nice inspector. But I would let them know that you're okay, you know, stand down, everybody. And I've come across inspectors now. When I had my outstandings with my care homes recently, they gave me that feedback and said, don't worry, you're absolutely fine. But I made it clear to them I want an outstanding from you. And then we had that discussion. So I'm never shy telling an inspector what my expectations are of them as well. And this one I've highlighted because I think this is so important, and this is new. Quick fixes. So if minor negative findings are noted on an inspection, these should be included in a report However, if these can be rectified swiftly, say within 2 weeks, and adequate assurance can be given that this is occurred, they should not affect the rating. So if you fix something there and then, or within 2 weeks of your inspection, they can mention it, but they cannot downgrade you for it. So recently I had a provider, and CQC rated them inadequate and requires improvement in various places. And they came to me and we read the report. And in one of the sections, the inspector had said there were 3 flies on the bed. And they had made that an issue. The provider said to me, Sultana, the client's room is facing the garden. It was a hot summer's day. Because of the way their personal care is, we have to open the window to let fresh air in the mornings. When the inspectors were doing their walk around, our team went in, they cleaned the room, they opened the curtains, they sprayed the room, okay? Just in case any flies or anything was had come in. During that time, 3 flies met their maker and dropped onto the bed. The inspector came in, saw 3 flies, noted it on the inspection report, and it was in the draft inspection and requires improvement for, I think it came under safe environments. We challenged it because the provider had put in, at the recommendation of the inspector, a fly screen on the window. It was done on the same day. We went back, we did the factual inaccuracies, and within that, for additional information, the end section, we filled in that on the day of the inspection, this is what we did. It got taken off the report. The provider's report was published, I think, on Friday, and it's gone from inadequate to good because we challenged every single factual inaccuracy. And anything where the inspector had been put nonsense in there, we challenged. Yeah, so don't be scared to challenge, but you have to be factual. Yeah, not he said this, she said situation. You have to be factual when you are challenging the CQC, because some of the things in their factual inaccuracies was he said, she said, and I was like, no. Keep to the facts. Keep to proportionate reporting. If they're saying 3 flies out of 14 rooms is putting someone at risk, that's not proportionate. Because I'm sure there'll be 3 flies around here somewhere at some point. Yeah, that's not proportionate. You cannot mark a provider down for that. So it's very good that they're doing that, and you need to remember that, because if something happens in your services and you're being inspected and you fix it there and then, or within 2 weeks, but not fix it within 2 weeks and pat yourself on the back and carry on with life. No, you inform them that you fixed it. Because if you're not evidencing to them that you've done something, how do they know it happened? But if that's the case, they can mention it, they cannot downgrade your rating. Okay. Also what they said, that it also said that increasing the rate of inspections doesn't help us. So there's no point in CQC running out and start inspecting us all because they're behind. Okay? It's not going to be meaningful. It's not going to be reflecting what's happening in the service. So they have to be proportionate. They have to re-look. So what they've said is, re-look at the reports that you've already published. So in the last couple of years, some of the nonsense reports that have been published, they have to re-look at. So if any one of you have had a report or an inspection in the last couple of years during this whole new inspection framework, and you're not happy with it, now's your time. Okay? You can ask for it to be reviewed, because they've recognized that there's reports that have been written that are not practical. They're not right. They don't support providers at all. So make sure that you take advantage of that. Okay? So what can you do to make the most out of this current situation? Well, always be inspection ready. And when I say be inspection ready, Your whole team needs to be inspection ready. Now, someone was saying, I think Godfrey was saying earlier that somebody hasn't been on holiday for 3 years because they're too scared. I was speaking to a provider. She recently had, well, not recently, 3 years ago, CQC turned up to her service while she was in America on holiday. She was the only person that had access to all the governance systems. She was the only person that knew where anything was. When CQC came in, they gave her an inadequate because her staff just sat there and said, oh, I don't know. No, I don't know. And she was in America. She didn't have Google Drive or anything like that. It was all saved on her desktop, on her computer. So CQC couldn't gain access to any information. She wasn't. Since then, she hasn't gone on holiday again. She's too scared. She's like, Sultana, if I go on holiday, they're going to come. And I'm like, that's why you've now got Google Drive, love. You know? But you have to make sure your service is inspection ready without you. Okay? Because you don't know where you'll be on the day of the inspection. You have to make sure that your service is able to continue to run. Okay? Even if you have a registered manager, your service should still run if you and your registered manager are not there on the day. Okay? Use what you know to build the evidence for your inspection. So you know your service. You know the amazing things that you're doing. You know how your service is being run. So every single day you should be gathering that evidence. You should be building on that. So when CQC walk through the door, it's not a shock moment. You've got your evidence ready, okay? Because you are providing a service every day. You know what CQC is going to ask for. They're going to ask for your pre-admissions. They're going to ask for your care plans. They're going to ask for your audits. They're going to ask for your staff files. You need to be ready every single day. So that is basic. You don't need me to tell you that. You don't need Godfrey to tell you that either. That's fundamentally what you should be doing anyway. Remember, the regulations haven't changed. So no matter if CQC bring in the single assessment framework, they bring in a different framework, they change yet again, the regulations stay the same. So as long as you are meeting the regulations, you are a compliant service. Okay? So focus on the regulations. Understand the core regulations behind the quality statements and work backwards. Okay? So don't work from the quality statement back. Go to the regulation and make sure you're meeting those and make those regulations work within your organization, because the regulations never change. Take control of your service's CQC experience. Don't be scared to question, don't be scared to challenge, okay? Remember, you're the provider, you're the customer. Remember, you're the customer and you've not received your paid service in quite a while, because you're all paying CQC every year, aren't you? Yeah? They didn't stop once asking you for your payments, but yet they never came out. So you haven't had your service hasn't been delivered. And complete some self-assessments. Look inward. Take off your rose-tinted glasses, yeah, and really look at your service. Dig deep, yeah. You don't need auditors. You don't need other people. You should every single day be questioning what's happening in your service. If something is going wrong, you need to dig deep and find out, okay, what have we done? What have we learned from this? So make sure that you complete your own self-assessments. You look in the mirror every now and then as well. And none of what I've just told you comes from any secret handbook or anything like that. It's all on the CQC's website, okay? Every piece of information I've just given you came from the CQC's website. So as providers, if there's one thing you're going to take away today, is get to know, especially this section of the CQC's website. Because CQC inspectors don't have a handbook, okay? They don't have an intranet site that tells them what to do. They all look at this page. It's one page, whether you're internal or external to CQC. All right, so there's no hidden book anywhere. Learn this, understand this. If you want to know something about regulations, you go to there. If you want to know about registration, click on the hyperlink. Yeah, it's easy. If you want to understand all the different notifications, go in there and have a look. It will give you hyperlinks to the regulations. It will give you hyperlinks to what you need to know. It even shows you best practice. I'm putting myself out of job here, but basically, that's how you, but it's good. As providers, you need to understand your work. You need to understand this as well as anyone like me does as well, because I might be on holiday. I certainly won't answer the phone at, 2 o'clock in the morning, because I put the do not disturb on, so sorry. But when I was at CQC, one of the key things we used to be told was providers would call us every now and then or email us at night to say something's going on. And CQC inspectors are always told, remember, you're not the fourth emergency service. That's what CQC were taught in their training. And that is it. That's it from me. I've stuck to my time. I'm proud of myself today, because last time I went over. Any questions?